what did you do this weekend, Jen?
Yeah, so guys, I don't know like if anyone on here follows us on social media or whatever, so what people know, but I went to the march on Saturday in DC, the Free Palestine March. And it was amazing. I've never seen anything like that before in my whole life, that they're estimating 300,000 people or so.
Yeah, and even if it's off by 10,000, big deal.
No, because when we were in it, and I have some pictures, we could put up my little slide presentation if you want to. So when we were in it, it was really difficult to see how big. I mean, we knew we were in a huge crowd, but you can't see. I kept thinking, I wish I had a drone. I wish I had a drone to be like watching it. But and now seeing the picture, and I have a couple of overhead shots that are not courtesy of me. The first pictures are mine, and then there's some overheads. But it was amazing. And for anyone who has like thoughts about what those rallies look like or what the people are like or what they're chanting, I was there before it started. I was there pretty much for like, I'd say 4 hours. I mean, at least like it went into the night, and then everybody was sort of still just like mulling around the White House, and it was really crowded. I did not see one act of anything belligerent or angry or violence or conflict, nothing, not at all, not the whole day, not with the people, not with the police. The police were there in a capacity actually to protect the protesters from traffic. And that was basically it. The police presence was literally just around the perimeter to block off the streets. There was no anything negative that happened. So it's like when people say that people are chanting death to Jews, not an ounce of anti-Semitism. There were tons of Jews there, all dispersed amongst the crowd because this wasn't a JVP or a Jewish event, but it was very, harmonious. It was. There was not a single problem.
I think the other thing you have to remember that was so interesting about this event is you did get there early, and you were there when it was probably, 10, 20,000 people.
I was there when it was a couple hundred people.
Yeah. So this thing just kind of ballooned. It became this sort of avalanche of people that just ended up showing up.
Well, no, there were a ton of people that came from all across the country.
Sure.
There were a ton of people. There were buses. People got bussed in. Code Pink had buses coming from different locations. So a lot of organizations had buses coming in, but it was huge. And huge. And the racial diversity, the socioeconomic diversity, the age diversity, really, it was across the board. It was across the board. And yes, there were a lot of Palestinian people there. And you know what I've come to learn from my friend who I was with, and it's really interesting because I never really thought of this, but for so many years, there have always been these Palestinians living among us, but they're living among us. But a lot of times, historically, with the way prejudices and bigotry has been in this country, I have come to realize that many of those people would say they were from Jordan or Lebanon, so as to not provoke any sort of reaction or confrontation. And so there are a ton of people that we have always thought of as Jordanian and Lebanese. And yes, there are also Jordanian and Lebanese people, but I didn't realize there was this huge amount of population that were scared to say who they were. It makes sense. Yes. It totally makes sense, but I didn't put it together at the time. But so, oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing. Do you want to see my pictures?
We would like to see your pictures.
You can add my pictures. So yeah, take the banner off. I specifically took pictures that I just thought were kind of cool. I could have taken hundreds of pictures, if not for the fact that my phone was about to die. And I was so smart because I brought the battery, but I didn't bring the cord. So I was walking around with the battery, holding it really close to my phone, hoping it would work. Genocide Joe was a big thing. That was a very common chant. It was or something like something Genocide Joe.
Hey, ho, ho, Genocide Joe has got to go.
Right, like they're not with that. And then this picture right here was really fun because the lady in the yellow shirt, there's a series of these. And I think I sent you the one where I was cracking up because she overheard me saying, I want to get a flag in the background. And she literally came running over and was like waving the flag. And it was like on my head. It was so hilarious.
The thing that makes this photo so unique, if you guys are looking, is the fact that it isn't just Jen with Jews for Palestine and U.S. aid to Israel with the Palestinian flags. You do have the American flag in the background.
It's interesting.
It's very symbolic in many ways.
Well, that this happened there.
Well, because the truth is, if this was the United States of America in the vision of the people of the United States of America, the American flag would be interwoven with the Palestinian flag, not the Israeli flag. And so what we've come to understand is so many of the old tropes that we've been learning about that are not true are now starting again. This is a new world that's trying to be born right now. And the old guard is doing everything in their capacity to ensure that that does not change. And there is a lot of money, even though it is almost like a super minority now of people that are suggesting that what is happening in Palestine is okay, that Israel has to do this, that it's absolutely necessary because we've got to kill Hamas.
Well, they have the right to defend themselves.
Even though it's been proven, two fronts. One, that Netanyahu's government has been funding Hamas, and two, that the Israeli armed forces have already killed about 60 of the hostages. So this idea that we've got to save the hostages, and until that is done, we must continue this mass slaughter, which is north of 10,000 people now, and apparently it's 6,000 children that have been killed.
Well, that's the majority of people there. So that's how that works. So the picture on the right, I don't know if you guys look, you could see there's a big screen with the woman talking. She was an amazing speaker. But that's just to show you how far away we were. That screen is about a football field away from the actual stage. Mm-hmm. And we were on this far from that, and it still went on behind me. Like, it was just,
luckily they had speakers to project.
Yeah, no, they did. The whole setup was very professional. All right, go to the next slide. Next slide. This is just more shots of what it looked like all around. You see happy people, like there were smiling people. Like it was a very chill event.
Part of the reason I think that people were very happy in spite of all of the sadness and violence that is going on right now is that the people that were there, the more and more people that showed up, the more that they realized it was 10,000, then it was 30,000, then it was 100,000, and then it was even more than that. They realized that, yeah, we're actually on the right side of this issue, and it looks like the people are starting to wake up to that reality. Maybe we might actually get somewhere with this.
Well, the mass movement eventually made its way over to the White House, and when I tell you this thing was, there are no words. Like the White House was surrounded so many people deep, and everybody was being peaceful. And yet I went back to the hotel that night and put on, just for shits and giggles, and on Fox News, you have a woman literally saying that the Free Palestinian movement, when they're chanting from the river to the sea, is a call for genocide against the Jews. And that's so not true. That's just not true. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking out my hotel window at this point at all the people just still milling around and waving flags. And this woman is sitting there just spewing this vile rhetoric on TV that is just so not true.
That sounds like something that libs of TikTok would be saying. You see, for those of you who don't know, the account online that calls out all of the overwoke people that has been doing it for a while and obviously doing it for, political points, libs of TikTok, is actually, I don't remember her name, but I know that she is a Zionist and a Zionist Jewish woman. And you're going to see very quickly just how insane you cannot be of the mind that I'm going to stand on one side or another side. I keep insisting that if RFK ever really came around on this issue, he could actually find a lane where he could win the presidency, because this is an actual issue that is going to move people at the ballot box next year in many, many ways.
And now for the sheer size of it, for you guys looking at this, if you can look at the screen. So this overhead picture is maybe like, I don't know, 1/6 of the crowd. Like, because that would be like if you broke it was like a giant, if you picture a giant rectangle, like a candy bar, and you broke it into like 6 pieces, this would be one of those pieces, just for frame of reference. And this was the one I showed my mom, and I said, look, I'm right by the flag.
You are? I think you're right there.
Well, what's weird is I'm all disoriented right now looking down at this, and I can't remember which side of that flag I actually am on. And I'm trying to...
Near the triangle.
No, I think I'm not near the triangle.
Okay, maybe you're near the black.
And then there's this whole attitude about the Palestinian flag, like it's a terrorist flag and it's a Hamas flag. No, it's not. The flag existed before that. Like, it's just the flag of their people. If you would like them to have a national flag, then you'd have to give them self-determination. Then it would be a flag. See, these are people that don't even have a passport. They don't have anywhere to have a passport from. We won't allow them to have a country or a passport. So they just are stuck, like basically just, and
remember, the way that they always want to frame this is in the context of thousands of listen, when you have over 250,000 people that are there, you say thousands to make it seem like maybe 3 or 4 or 5,000 people showed up. No, you actually.
I just like the picture.
I think the picture's great, and I think the picture speaks to the reality of what's going on here. And look, part of the reason why you do not see any type of pro-Israel marches is because they could never get forget a 10th of the amount of people that are out there, and they probably couldn't get a 50th of the amount of people that were out there, because they know that they're on the wrong side of history. It's really no different than what's going on in Ukraine. Overwhelmingly, people know that what's happening with the war in Ukraine is being perpetrated by us controlling NATO and ensuring that this goes on. Like you said, Ukraine is the new Vietnam War.
Yeah, that's going to go on.
And so the new Holocaust, as crazy as this is to actually contemplate, is actually happening right now in Gaza.
Okay,
So,
that's my and just for people to realize, the picture on the left with the guy with the afro is like my most favorite picture for a lot of reasons. But if you look, the woman at the bottom, the way she's looking up at him, by the way, that little flag literally was coming out of his afro, which I just found so entertaining. And just the whole picture. And then I do like the BB is a bitch sign. That was also kind of a little thing. Some people got very creative.
I think he's a lot worse than that, but nevertheless, he's certainly, he is a.
Isn't that cool though?
You know who BB is? Honestly, BB's Mussolini.
Yeah,
like,
no, he's horrible.
Really is.
He's
like,
horrible.
Like he's going to end with all, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. BB's going to end up like Mussolini because he's not that far off.
Do you like? Isn't that cool?
I think it's great.
I think that shot came out really well. I sent it to Max. Yeah, and then you've got this sign, Sleepy Joe, stop being Israel's hoe, which I just, people were original.
They were. Well, a lot of times it's kind of like going to, it's like the old days of going to a WWE event when everybody had the signs up during the Attitude Era. And
well, this is just, it was just really amazing.
Yeah.
It was just really amazing. That's my friend. She doesn't necessarily choose to be on the podcast.
Have a nice day.
But yeah, and so that was us in front of the White House, and it kept getting thicker and thicker and thicker. It was
shout
crazy.
out to all the wonderful people that were there. Also, a big shout out to Cynthia Mendez, who came up to Jen at the event to tell me about. She apparently wrote. I haven't responded and wrote some stuff on social media.
She was sweet, because I wasn't thinking I was ever good. It had been a while since I've seen her. I've interviewed so many candidates that I wouldn't have necessarily recognized her. So I'm glad she saw me, but I was just glad she was the only person I ran into that I knew. And that, because even people I knew that were there, that we were trying to coordinate, we could not get cell service in this crowd. We couldn't get cell service. And even if you knew where someone was, there was no way you were going there. Like, you couldn't get to that person. I was supposed to coordinate with Max Alvarez. I was supposed to coordinate with Alethea. Like, there was no coordinating.
Also, shout out to Jose Vega. He was there. Talk about a person who really just puts in the work, does an amazing job. Shout out to Alethea and Craig Shapiro.
And Medea, Benjamin and Code Pink were there.
Well, Alethea and Craig are great activists. They do an amazing job. And Alethea put out some really great video clips of the event. Shout out to Jewish Voice for Peace. They have done an amazing job of doing what is necessary to, show that this is not a, Jews versus the world, bullshit narrative, which has been going on for decades and decades and decades.
We need to connect with people from the Palestinian youth movement. Those kids are amazing. I say kids, they're not really kids, but they are to me, but they're amazing.
And of course, big shout out to Medea Benjamin and the amazing work that Code Pink has done, particularly in the last week.
And Ty Berry, let's not forget, he's always there.
Yes.
And I'm sorry I couldn't get to your guys' thing. I couldn't even work my way back from that crowd if I wanted to get back to that street.
But, credit, because they're obviously going to do everything they can to pretend like this didn't actually happen over the weekend. But a big shout out specifically to Code Pink because of what they did at the Senate hearing with who I like to call, obviously, President Blinken. Although at this point, I don't think anybody doubts that President Blinken is a very fitting title for what's been going on.
The speeches were amazing.
Yes, coming up with the blood on the hands was very genius.
No, the speeches were great.
But as you even suggested, look, when you have at least 250,000 people gathered in a very small space, getting cell service, it's probably going to knock out the tower, and there's only so much that you can do.
I also had a different theory. I don't know. I mean, you know, like I feel like I've been doing this long enough that I always look for like the dark shadows, but it is very possible that it was just there were so many people and everyone had their cell phones out. Everybody was taking pictures and video and there were, I mean, so I don't know enough about cell service to say whether or not what that does to it, but it would not surprise me at all if something was done to sort of like inhibit the cell service. It wouldn't surprise me. There wasn't like even the way this was covered was not covered at all accurately, which I wouldn't expect it to. But the thing is that there were 300,000 people there that all had the same basically calming experience. And so those are witnesses. We're witnesses. And you know, it's like, you're not going to be able to gaslight me about this. You're not going to be able to say this was some sort of unholy riot and crazy. Like, I'm never going to believe that. So,
and one more shout out, particularly to Mr. Eugene
Eugene Puryear. I've been following him for a long time. If you guys aren't watching Breakthrough News with Eugene and Rania, I highly recommend. Rania also has her show on that channel as well. But the two of them are great, especially when it comes to covering things in Middle East and Africa. That is one of my go-tos. And Eugene was there. Again, I would have liked to go say hi, but there was no chance of that ever happening. But his speech was amazing. If you guys get a chance to watch Eugene's speech, he was like fire. It was great. And it was funny. Like I wasn't paying attention at one point. We were trying to get resituated. And then all of a sudden I heard this voice and I'm like, is that Eugene Puryear? And I like turned around and sure enough, there he was on the big screen.
We're going to play you a clip now of how it was actually covered in the media. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm not optimistic it's going to be anything good.
No.
So just
what is this from?
Brace yourself. It's from Saturday. So we'll see exactly how this was covered.
What media is this?
Not sure.
Okay.
I'll put it together. We'll see.
Okay.
Here we go.
The corporate media spews lie after lie about the Palestinian struggle to manufacture support for a genocidal apartheid state. Yeah. The battle of ideas is in full swing, and everyone must do their part to push against what is widely spread and unquestionably believed. Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Biden, Biden, you can't hide! Biden, Biden, you can't hide! We charge you with genocide! We charge you with genocide!
We need to tell you that no amount of hypocrisy of trying to tell us all of a sudden that you're going to have an international plan on Islamophobia at a time where you're throwing bombs on the heads of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. That will not work. That will not work. Your days for coming around and getting Muslim vote for nothing are over.
On August 16th of this year, 2023, I got a news alert that my name had been mentioned in an article. And this time, it wasn't Ted Cruz calling me an anti-Semite. This time, it was another Omar Suleiman, a 16-year-old who shares my name, who was murdered in the West Bank, where, by the way, there is no Hamas. And he was shot in the chest in cold blood while he was riding his dirt bike around the West Bank, where his family has lived for generations. His name was Jose Omar Suleiman, the same name that my parents gave me. Last year, the 7-year-old boy, Rayan Suleiman, in the West Bank, once again, occupied territory, while he was walking home from school with his book sack, which had an animated car on it. and suddenly found himself being chased down by IDF soldiers who claimed that he had thrown stones at them. And with their full force, they followed him home to his house. And he went and hid in the corner of his room. And as they banged on the door and started to bang on his window, a 7-year-old boy with no medical history died of a heart attack. Cardiac arrest. A 7-year-old.
Yeah, that happened. I'm just there's no shortage of stories. That was one of many horrible stories.
And shout out to Status Quo as always, John
Yes.
Farina. Sorry, Jen couldn't get to you.
Oh,
That was
they
not-
know anybody who was there has no expectation. They understand that there was no connecting. This wasn't like when we go downtown to Fort Lauderdale and you meet up with somebody. You know, this wasn't that. So the stories are horrific, and they're babies. More than half of Gaza is children. And that's because people don't live long there. How can you live? You have no, your infrastructure is so bad. You don't have access to clean drinking water. So life expectancy is pretty low. So most of the people there are children. So these are babies.
Now, unfortunately, because the overwhelming majority of people in this country see Gaza for what it is, which is a genocide, it's clear that they're systematically killing these people. And they're, I also always find it so interesting when there are those who say, well, why won't Egypt just take it's if to say they don't, we're literally stealing your land. We're stealing all you have. Get the hell out of here. And then it's, well, why won't other people just take them? Even if they don't have the justification, the idea that they can't see the reality.
The caucasity.
Yeah. There's
the absolute caucasity of the situation. Well,
just come to your neighborhood and, people should reenact that here.
Right. You go and just go to that other neighborhood. They'll let you in. But it's, first of all, I would suggest.
But of course that gets back to the whole idea of dehumanization.
Oh yeah. We could just move them wherever. Like it doesn't matter if they could go there, even if those countries open their arms and welcome them with citizenship to their countries, which that's not how it goes. They end up living in refugee camps and they don't get citizenship, and it's a disaster. And right now, Egypt is not from my understanding, an economic position to be able to incur that level of immigration. And so it's like, and they shouldn't have to. That's not where they're supposed. That would be like somebody coming in here and taking our country and being like, look, why won't Canada or Mexico just take you people? Just go to Canada or Mexico. There's plenty of space. I don't know. It's so arrogant, the caucasity, the absolute caucasity of these people. It's a level of entitlement that really is just off the charts. It really is. It's so like, and it's this thing, like when we have with interpersonal relationships, like I'm very averse to triangles. Like your issue with another person is with that person. You don't need to bring someone else in, get their opinion, tell them to do. It doesn't involve anybody else. This doesn't involve anybody else. This isn't Egypt or Jordan's problem. This isn't Lebanon's problem. Like it's not it should not be their burden. And yet they all have refugee camps in them and have for years and years. And it's very horrible. So, and by the way, those are the Palestinians that aren't in the concentration camp.
Yeah.
We're no longer calling Gaza a prison. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.